The Reprehensibles, Chapter 9. By early the next morning, on the lunar surface, all new employees had been safely transported to the departure hangar and were sleeping in their new quarters. For Terrance Wilson, the sleep had not been so gentle. He and Neville were in a large tube-like corridor and encircling walls and a ceiling that was even more spectacular. It was composed of pentagon orange nodules bordered in black. There were thousands of them, filling the corridor with a strange light. Wilson turned in the opposite direction, but the corridor ended abruptly in a mass of nodules. "Pay no mind, Wilson. We have far more important things to discuss this morning. That's why I brought you down here," said Neville as he walked ahead. "Well, where are we?" "Suffice to say, this is a restricted area. When you are fully informed of this operation this morning, then we will tell you where you are and how we got here." They walked another few meters toward a set of shiny doors embedded in the nodules on either side of the corridor. "Is that where we're going?" asked the astonished Wilson. "No, these are the suites used for detention purposes. Down there," he pointed, "at the end. That's where we're going, Wilson." They continued to the end of the passageway and a squared Zambian wall and a long blue door. Wilson was still perplexed as to their location and the purpose of this operation. "Computer, open the doors," ordered Neville. Inside was a small room with another set of sliding doors. "Computer, 7625-090-7202. "Remember that, Wilson," he said as the doors opened to a large inner office with a bright orange carpet and oak-paneled walls. They walked through and the doors sealed tightly. Seated in front of a long window with the blinds drawn was Elmer Duval. He rose when he saw them come inside. "Good morning, Elmer," said Neville confidently. Good morning," answered Duval. "And, Terrance, how are you doing?" "Well, I'm doing just fine, Elmer. I thought you were under suspicion for murder." "Put that out of your mind, Wilson. Elmer is only guilty of running from my father's office and nothing more. You will keep his presence here in total confidence." "Well, Wilson," said Neville as he opened the blinds. "Not bad, eh?" Wilson, mystified and dumbfounded, walked toward the window. Apparently Duval's office was high above and in the center of a side wall of a mammoth assembly plant. There were rows and rows of production lines beginning at the far right. Here, the rough shells of spacecrafts traveled down the line and were fitted with components, ending their journeys in the form of offensively equipped ships at the other end. "How did you accomplish all this?" asked Wilson. "Years of planning, right, Elmer?" "To say the least," answered Duval. "How long does it take to build one of these ships?" "I'll say without boasting, Wilson, we can put one through in a day." "I don't understand. I see people on that assembly line and computers. Why not have the computers do it all?" Purpose, Wilson," said Neville. "We believe that people should have purpose, so we've established an overall program within the area. For instance, most people on Earth are overseers of what the computers, and yet the computers make all the decisions. People on Earth have no real control. I grant you this is a very monotonous work, but they only work in 4-hour shifts. For the remaining time, they receive instruction on their choosing, of course, which gives them a sense of perspective to their lives. Without perspective, they do not live at all. They merely exist like animals. We do not try and influence them too much unless, asked Wilson. Unless they rebel. Rebelling against what is best for them is not tolerated." "What do you mean, rebel?" "Against what is best for them. Very simple." "Oh," said Wilson, who seemed far more interested in the trappings of power within the restricted area. "Can I see one of those spacecrafts?" "Exactly what we're here for, Wilson," said Neville. "Computer, send in Mr. Klein. Mr. Klein will show you anything you wish to see here. When you're finished with the tour, you'll go back to Mr. Duval's office, and we can brief you on our plans to neutralize all Earth resistance." "You're really going to invade the Earth?" "Not in the conventional sense. We have and are trying other means first. Actual use of spacecraft is the last item on the priority list at the present time. For use only if the other plans fail, said Neville as the balding Klein opened a side door and came in the office. Mr. Klein, this is Terrance Wilson. You have your instructions, said Duval. Of course, Mr. Wilson, if you will come with me into the plant. He led Wilson through the side doorway and they stepped onto an open, winding staircase leading directly into the assembly complex below. Neville turned to Duval once they had left. Send in Commander Vachon. Duval walked to the doors and to his left opened them without the aid of a computer. In a few moments, a scar-faced man with his head shaven and a full Manchu mustache walked through the doorway. His face was serious, and he was dressed in the same red suit which the intruders had worn at the food production plant. Neville studied the long scar down his left cheek. With a slight tinge of fear, Neville studied the long scar down his left cheek. My leader, said Vachon as he stood in front of Neville. Vachon, as I have told you time and time again, call me Neville or Mr. Constantine. This leader business upsets me. As you wish, Mr. Constantine, he said as Duval drew the blinds. Sound screens, ordered Neville. Gentlemen, please sit down. We are at a point in our long progress of arming the Lunar Aggregate. At the end of the day, we will reach a par with the exact number of Earth vessels available for combat, or those that could be equipped should we attack. But not much more power, insinuated Vachon. Exactly, we've equaled their power over 2 months ago. I'm totally confident as things stand now that we can bring Earth to its knees in a matter of hours. But, and this is important, they could hold out. If that occurs, we have to set examples, and that would mean added killing, Vachon. To me, death would be an improvement over their lifestyles on Earth, but I am not without compassion. It's the improvement of those lifestyles I want, of course, not death. And the only way that we're going to change those lifestyles is to have a total and unequivocal surrender to Lunar Aggregate. I think we'll accomplish that goal, he said as he looked at the doubting Duval. Alma, what's the matter? You're forgetting one important thing, said Duval. Resistance may be more than you think. The destruction may be so great that your goals may not be worth it. That is why we will begin withholding food supplies. With what has taken place with our saboteurs, they're already dependent on us for 32% of their food. A total or even diminished embargo will bring them to our terms very quickly. Now let us discuss all aspects when Wilson returns, and when he is fully aware, we will tell him about the bottom line. Right now, Vachon, I want to see the simulated attack on all lunar and Earth orbits, said Neville as the meeting continued behind the closed blinds. Below, Klein and Wilson had finished the long climb down the steel staircase. Klein walked briskly, bringing Wilson to the far end of the plant next to the assembly. I can bring you downstairs to the furnaces where the shells are made, Mr. Wilson. It's hot in here. No, this place is fine, said Wilson. Very well. Right this way, said Klein as he brought him toward a cart similar to the ones used by the militiamen on Earth. They climbed inside and Klein moved ahead slowly. This is the part of the line where the outside shell is secured with the first phase of components. Klein brought him along the entire span of the assembly line, stopping at the significant points and explaining the procedures involved. It was when they came to the end of the lines that the spacecraft was beginning to take shape. This is the bubble phase. Bubble? Right, a heat-resistant transparent dome or Zambi. It's molded into the main body of the craft. The next station, you'll see the workers awaiting the ship to install your internal systems. Now, these systems have been assembled on the fourth line and now only have to be installed, said Klein as the cart moved along, passing a blonde-haired man hard at work on the line. What's down there? Asked Wilson as he pointed toward the end of the line. The weapon systems, manufactured on the third line. They're installed at the final station. They're conventional blasters with a destructive power that can level 100 square meters in a single blast. Can I get one of those things? Asked Wilson. If you wish, he said as he turned the cart around. I'll bring you to the hangar. How's this place gone unnoticed? Where are we, Mr. Klein? cannot answer that question because I do not know. They will tell us when you return, he said as he steered the cart to his left and up a wide ramp. Computer, open the doors. The doors, maybe 20 meters high, were directly across the plant from Duval's office. They opened to the inside, and Klein drove the cart into a room that was larger than the giant assembly plant. On the walls were 5 levels filled with the completed spacecrafts. In the center of the floor was a white basin like a ramp, exactly like the one used by the Lunar Aggregate cargo transporters. It led to the distant end of the hangar and to more orange light. Around the ramp were scattered spacecraft which had not yet been brought to the higher levels. I take it they use the same propulsion systems as the cargo transport, asked Wilson. Right, which is? We'll have to discuss that with Mr. Turcroft, said Klein as he slowed the cart next to one of the crafts. It was a frightening construction resembling an image of a flying saucer, a tapering disc maybe 7 meters in diameter with a bubble top. It sat atop a snub-nosed pedestal and was inscribed with the Lunar Aggregate logo. Klein got out of the cart and ducked under the craft. He pushed the appropriate sensors and a panel slid open to the cabin above. You may crawl inside, Wilson, said Klein as he emerged from underneath the disc. The propulsion units have not been activated, so don't worry about that. Why not? Asked Wilson as he ducked under the ship. Because the ship is a simulator. Wilson pulled himself onto the shiny black floor with a high-back red chair. He got into the chair, which, by computer instruction, could be angled or situated anywhere in the craft. Panels were surrounded by the base of the dome, mostly for the benefit of the pilot, as the computer could virtually run the ship's attack. However, there were manual steering controls, and manual blaster operations were located under the ship's screen. The thousands of individual readouts provided a vivid light show as Wilson prepared to have some fun in the simulator. Hey, Klein, are these blasters on? The simulator is not operational at the moment. We should be going back to the office now, said Klein as he waited impatiently. Wilson pulled out the manual steering control as if he were actually piloting the ship, pushing the blaster sensors time and time again. Bam! 5 Earth ships knocked out. Pretty fancy shooting. Klein did not look impressed. He nervously shifted his weight from one leg to the other as Wilson continued his little war game. Pilot to lunar surface, all 5 vessels destroyed. Going in to personally win this planet myself. Veering to the right. Surrender, you fool! Ha ha! It was all a far-removed game to him, and he was oblivious to what it really meant to extinguish life from its fragile consciousness. Mr. Wilson, yelled Klein. Wilson looked up through the bubble with a large smile on his face. Come on, Klein, I'm winning the Earth. We really should be leaving. They're expecting us. Oh yeah, sure, said Wilson as he stood up and lowered himself from the spacecraft. This thing is great. I'll have to ask Neville if I could fly one myself. Klein did not answer as he closed the hatch and hurried back to the cart. He moved it back to the office. Wilson pointed ahead. To the office, Klein, he said as he laughed. Several minutes later, Neville opened the door to the staircase and the jubilant Wilson rushed through the doorway. That spacecraft is phenomenal. You're a little late, Wilson. Try to correct that in the future. But you said, never mind what I said. Your attitude is revolting. We have serious business to discuss. Forget about that spacecraft. We brought you here to a higher level of power for 2 reasons. You have incredible expertise to get things done, to prompt people into action. Secondly, we want you to use your experience with the food disk to Lunar Aggregate's advantage. Elmer, what he's saying, Randy, is we're going to create a food shortage on Earth. And you want me to close down the disks? Asked Wilson. Hardly, answered Duval. In fact, we want production boosted 5%. We have the added workers here now and are reasonably sure you can motivate and coordinate their efforts. Let me get this straight. You want a shortage, yet you increase production. Neville took over the conversation. Wilson, you leave the shortage to us. If Earth has any questions, you can show them the facts. In a few weeks, we'll brief you on the overall picture. You see, if we take over the Earth by creating this shortage, then we will have saved a ruthless military adventure. But if we need to attack, we will, and with full fury. This plan in our plans is totally classified, Wilson, and will not be discussed with anyone. Commander Vashon, tell Wilson what will happen if any of this leaks out. Smiling broadly, the mighty Vashon arose and brandished a long-bladed knife from his red suit. He placed the cold metal against the brown skin on Wilson's neck as Wilson shivered. I will personally cut out blocks of flesh from your body. Your death will be excruciating and slow. No need to fear, Wilson, smiled Neville, as he was amused by the charade. If you keep your silence, you'll find things most pleasant for the rest of your life. Now, Elmer, show Wilson the bottom line. Wilson rose like a robot under the command, and Duval led him out of the office. Into the corridor. Vashon walked over to Neville when they had left. We shouldn't waste our time with foolish threats. I say we attack the Earth now, while they are all off guard. Then we will have what is ours. In good time, Commander, in good time. The Reprehensibles, Chapter 10. Over 2 weeks had passed since Terrance Wilson had received a tour of the assembly plant and hangar. He stood in the hallway of his new apartment and looked into the living room where his wife had been sitting for 3 weeks, eating only occasionally and not responding to any of his pleas. Andrea Constantine Wilson was almost affixed to the screen. Input after input of year after year of Darius Constantine had been scanned, and she was so engrossed that he thought she was mad. Sometimes she looked happy with the dead man's image. Wilson even tried yelling, but she would not budge from the spot. Out of fear of Neville and the evil knife of Commander Vashon, Wilson did not let anyone inside the apartment, nor did he relay Andrea's denigrated state. He blamed himself in a logical way, but emotionally he couldn't have cared less. The computer sounded and he took a few seconds to answer as he kept his eyes on his beleaguered wife. Yes.
Call on the screen.
Who is it?
Maria Almonte on audio.
Put her on.
Terrance,
said Maria very humbly. She had, because of her skin, avoided any contact with him, but finally had settled in on an audio scan. Maria, it's good to hear your voice. Why no image?
I'm here, on the moon.
You here on the moon? Shouted Wilson as his eyes opened wide. His concern was that Maria had learned of his marriage to Andrea. What are you doing up here?
I work here, at the Wisconsin Food Disk. I'm surprised you didn't see my name. I'm the FPA for the entire 3 clusters.
Well, there are lots of clusters, he said. So you called me.
I just wanted to see you, that's all.
She said as relief passed over Wilson. Of course, I would look forward to that. I've missed you, Maria.
I've missed you in a certain weird way too, Terrance. I have some very serious things to discuss with you,
she said as she looked down at the green skin on her hands. Well, 2 friends should get together, as he glanced at the near catatonic Andrea.
I agree. Can I come over tonight?
No, he yelled. I mean, I'm not going to have you travel all the way up here from the Wisconsin Disk. That's ridiculous. I insist on taking the transitway to see you.
Terrance, I've come up here for the regional meetings.
Oh yes, the regional meetings. I scheduled them, didn't I?
Is everything all right with you?
She asked. Everything is fine, said Wilson as he tried to think quickly.
I can come up there tonight, Terrance.
No, I'll come down there. I'm looking forward to it. We'll pick up where we left off at the mountaintop.
Well, I'll see you then, Terrance.
Yeah, of course. See you then, said Wilson as the audio went silent. Running up to the distant Andrea, he spoke right to her face, but she couldn't hear. Did you hear that? I have somebody talk to me. Inspector Manford Glass was listening to Earth via a scrambled broadcast. Jim Pierce stood in the midst of what was left of one of the T's in the southeast African quadrants. Earthquakes had begun to shake the planet with an unknown ferocity and duration. Millions had been killed and millions were homeless. Greenie barriers had been broken down and the Greenies were pouring to the outside. To make matters worse, food was in short supply.
I don't know, Manford. The computers can't explain it. It's like the Earth is falling apart, both physically and socially.
Jim, they told me that a record number of cargo transports are leaving the moon, filled to the brim with food.
There's no food down here, Manford. They're fighting in the streets for the smallest morsel of food. Stracco will be arriving shortly. You must get proof.
Proof of what? Proof of what? After all this delay, Stracco should have been up here a long time ago. And Gigliano, like the chairman said, he just signed aboard one of the transports. I'm afraid it's going to be too little, too late.
Manford, Stracco will be arriving later tonight. We want no correlations between the flights back to the moon. He'll start reports tomorrow. You have to...
He began as he looked around, and Glass heard background noise. Jim, what's going on down there?
There's a food riot, Manford. It's spreading. I've got to sign off. I'll report back to you later,
said Pierce as he ran from the screen. Other people jaunted into view, swinging clubs and shouting loudly. Glass watched in disbelief as Arya stood up. Computer, shut off that screen. I can't believe it, said Glass, shaking his head. They should mount an attack against the Lunar Aggregate right now, said Stephanie. With what? It would take weeks to get that underway. Not if they hijacked a cargo transport. If Neville is running the type of operation that Connections thought he would squash the Earth, then our only hope at this point is to get Stracco to that operation and destroy it. Sounds like suicide, said Arya. Not necessarily, replied Glass. We need to find someone who can get us the figures on the food going out to the silo. We have to know if there's really food going down there, if they're just storing it on the moon or even Earth. The silo is filled, said Stephanie. But we don't know that for a fact. Get me a list of people within the Lunar Aggregate organization who can get us that information, preferably someone from Earth, said Glass as Arya connected with the computer at the hedge banks. Computer, read out on all available personnel to verify food output from the lunar surface to points of distribution.
852 people,
said the computer with the lettered list filling the blue screen. 800? Oh, we'll be here all night, cried Glass.
All of these people can meet the criteria you have established,
said the computer. Well, damn it, said Glass as he stood. Which one is the best?
There is no best. Since a minimum output is needed by the individual, any further assets would be superfluous.
Oh, swell, griped Glass. Can you get me the ones that are the closest in priority to the sector station, computer?
852.
Are you trying to be funny, computer?
No, but if you would like me to phrase it in a humorous way.
Never mind, I'll look at the list, he said as he began to scan the names. Makes no sense. I know which one to pick. Well, pick any one, Manford. They all could do the job, said Stephanie. Oh, he said as he ran his finger down the list. Risky meetings. This one on here. This one over here. His scanning went on for close to half an hour, with the women reading off the names and Glass rejecting them. It was only when they read Maria Almonte's name that Glass remembered her face from the incident at the silo station. She was under attack, remember? So we offer her more benefits. Look, she's going to be at that regional meeting. May already be there. Find out when she arrives and get a complete background scan on her, and find the exact state of her family benefits. That way we can bargain with her. Yes, indeed, Maria Almonte may help us get to the bottom of this problem. Maria arrived at the terminal just before 8 o'clock that evening. The sector station, which had been a mere glow on the horizon, was now looming over her as she stopped through the opening in the transitway. Carrying her new white rest coat over her arm, she walked with a woman. You've been inside a habitat, Maria? Of course, the upper floors aren't the same as the upper floors here, she said as they walked into the terminal. The humans on the moon, Shauna, are the elite. They live in self-contained mansions. I've seen them from a distance. And on Earth, the Reprehensibles, especially the Greenies, get the crumbs. Shayna stared at Maria's tinted skin. The elites don't understand. It is the people of Earth who must determine the course of their lives. The human being can't guide his own life, his own feelings and hopes. Then he truly has become reprehensible, she added as they passed several Lunar Aggregate recruits. From the middle of one of the groups, Mike Stracco, with a 2-week mustache, saw Maria walking down the terminal. He stopped, then viewed her light green skin. "Maria! Maria!" he yelled as he darted from the terminals. Maria stopped and turned, her face lighting up momentarily. She started to walk again. Stracco reached her and hugged her tightly. "Michael! Maria, what are you doing up here? And what happened to your skin?" "I work here now, and I don't think I want to see you, Michael." "But Maria, you followed me up here is what you've done." Stracco wanted to tell her his story, but he had to keep his silence. There was too much at stake. "Oh, I'm sorry, Maria, but I had to leave you that night." "I'm sorry too. And if you're wondering about my skin, I was captured by the Greenies for 2 days. So put that on what you call your conscience," she shouted as she turned and walked away with her friend. "Where are you going?" he called as he tagged along behind her. She stopped again and smiled. "I'm going to see Terrance Wilson, so there." "He's married, Maria," Stracco yelled. She stopped for a third time and then ran back to him. "You'll say anything just to hurt me, won't you? He married Darius Constantine 2 weeks ago." Maria, now very much hurt, looked into his glistening blue eyes. Clearing her throat, she spoke with great emotion. "You know, Michael, when you said you cared about me, I really felt something different. And you come up here just to chase after me. I'm not chasing after you, and there's a reason I'm up here. And I don't like to see you played for a fool." "You didn't chase me up there? Then what are you doing up here?" she said as she left with her friend. By the time Maria got settled in her fifth-floor apartment, she had lost most of the anger that she had directed at Stracco. Then she kept thinking of him and wondered why he had treated her so badly. She changed into a lightweight sheer turtleneck and red pants as she waited for Wilson to come to the apartment. A half hour went by and then an hour. The computer sounded.
"Terrance Wilson to see you,"
said the deep-voiced computer. "Yes, open the doors," said Maria as she slipped through the partition of the kitchenette. Wilson ambled through the doors. "Maria?" he asked as he looked around the tiny apartment. "I'm back here, Terrance." "Oh, going to surprise me, eh? Well, let me tell you something," he said as he sat on the sofa with his back to the partition. "Maria, you and I can have a lot of good times up here," he said as he slowly moved from behind the wall. "We'll spend the night together, breakfast in the terminal, and dine after the meetings." "You better look around first, Terrance." Wilson turned in anticipation, but when he saw the green skin, he started to laugh at her. "Ha, still got your old sense of humor, haven't you?" he said as he arose and looked back laughing. "Oh, Maria, you're too much. You look like one of those slimy Greenies." Devastated by his words, she looked into his pungent brown eyes, still misty from laughing. "It's no prank," she said softly as she lowered her head. "Oh, come on, Maria. Don't carry this to extremes. I thought it was funny trying to be a Greenie. Now go in the cleaner and wipe off that slime." "Can't wipe it off, Terrance. It's permanent." "Permanent?" he exclaimed as he stepped back. The joke was over. Now he seemed repulsed by what he saw. "I was taken through the Greenie barrier, right at that night, the night of our hike." Wilson gawked at her as if she were once a shiny new sports car that had rusted overnight. He swallowed several times and cleared his throat. "Maria, I think it might be best that, if we just think about this arrangement," he said quickly as he backed around the sofa. "This will take a little getting used to." A frightful wave spread over her slender body. She had hoped that Wilson would understand, but all Terrance Wilson wanted at that moment was to have her out of his sight. "Computer, open the doors."
"Doors is open.
But if we meet tomorrow, Maria, just pretend like you don't know me, okay? We can talk later, okay? He turned and raced down the sector station hallway toward the movers. As he neared the movers, Maria called out, "Terrance, are you married?" Wilson stopped in front of the movers. He looked at her, and the answer was evident. Entering the movers, he didn't answer, but she knew the truth. In fact, she had known it ever since Stracco told her, but she just didn't want to admit it. Wilson passed through the gold moving shafts and shook his head. It was not because of the dreadful thing that had happened to Maria. He was determined to spend the night with somebody. He shot out of the movers, looking in the direction of the terminal, what had happened to Maria Almonte. Further down in the middle of the terminal, Mike Stracco was engaged in a useless conversation with some of the men who were going to be working in the plant. In fact, during the last few minutes, he had stepped up to the group, half listening to what they were saying, and injecting innocent remarks into the conversation. He bobbed his head over the crowd looking for Maria, even though seeing her would not solve anything. As he looked to his left, he saw the excited Wilson walking quickly through the crowd as he headed for the cafes. "So, you're Terrance Wilson. Who's asking? I'm a friend of Maria Almonte," said the tough-talking Stracco. "Whoops," exclaimed Wilson as he tried to slip away. Stracco reached out and grabbed his arm, squeezing it tightly. "Why were you leaving, Mr. Wilson?" "Hey, look, I didn't mean to hurt her or anything. Just, she's the one who changed." "I can explain." "Explain for what? Marrying Andrea Constantine?" "I was forced into it. You just tell Maria." "I'm not going to tell Maria anything, Wilson. I think you've told her enough. Just stay clear of her. Leave her alone." "Who do you think you're talking to?" asked Wilson as he thought about his position. "I'm a big man here at Lunar Aggregate. I can do what I damn well please." "I don't think so," said Stracco, his lips tight. He stepped back and let his mighty fist fly into Wilson's chin, sending him sailing across the Zambian. Dizzy and confused, he staggered to his feet, tried to locate Stracco. But the room was spinning, and Stracco had just returned with the others, as if the order had gone out for them to do their jobs. Upstairs, Maria was on the edge of the sofa with one leg tucked under her thigh. All the hours seemed so meaningless, so wasted with Wilson. She still felt attracted to the aura of the lifestyle he possessed. Was it a figment of her imagination or a true reality that she still wanted it just the same? And tugging against these ambitions were her conflicting feelings about the Greenie camps, how they struggled to survive, how they were misunderstood. She was in this swirling structure of lifestyles as the computer sounded. "Yes."
"A visitor?"
"You tell Terrance I don't want to see him," she said as she jumped from the sofa. "Open the doors," she said as she stomped across the room. "I'll tell him what I think of his relationship." She readied herself for Wilson, but the doors opened. "You bastard," she began as Inspector Glass stood in the corridor with his portable computer. "Oh, was it something I said, Miss Almonte?" smiled Glass. "Inspector Glass, I'm sorry. I thought you were somebody else." "No doubt you did. May I come inside?" Please come in. I apologize." As he walked into the apartment. "Let me guess, Terrance Wilson has just seen you for the first time since your change of appearance." "Yes, you are a discerning man. I've been told you've been very persistent in your investigations. Is Terrance still a suspect?" "Yes, but that's not why I'm here tonight," he said as he sat down. "Oh? I have come on a matter of the utmost confidence, Miss Almonte. By the way, I want to thank you for my accommodations on the cargo transport that night. Now, what can I do for you?" "Ah, right to the point. I like that. Well, you can start by getting me some superin if you've been allotted some up here." "There's some in the cabinet," she said as she went back to the kitchenette. "Computer, sound screens at 15 meters, ordered Glass as she mixed the superin. "Sound screens?" She laughed and poured the hot water into the superin. "Part of your investigation, Glass?" "Glass? Now I'm calling you by your last name. No, I like that. No one really calls me Glass." "Okay, Glass," she said expressively as she came over with a cup of superin. Thank you very much, Maria. I want you to know that why I have come to see you here tonight. There's one basic reason that is not so basic. Well, she asked as she sat on the chair and sipped on the suprin. First, the Earth is riddled with social disorder, earthquakes and food shortages. You name it, they've got it. And you want me to stop all this? Say no more, she smiled, gesturing with her hands as Glass laughed. I'll take care of it first thing in the morning. Maria, he said as he grinned, I do want your help, but it has to be in the strictest confidence. What do you want? I want you to work for me. But I'm working for Lunar Aggregate. I don't know anything about homicide investigations. That's not what I meant, he said as he drank the suprin. I want you to use your position with Lunar Aggregate to get vital information from Earth. What kind of information? Asked Maria. I trust you, Maria. I've scanned your records with the computers. You're honorable, compassionate, concerned, and ambitious. I won't argue with you, she laughed. Because I trust you and I know you care about Earth, I'm going to tell you what I've learned today. It's the truth. You can check back with Earth. Your home and most of T-25 was destroyed by an earthquake and a resulting riot. My family, she said as she rose to her feet. They're all right. They're safe in Omri T-37. We can arrange a call at your convenience. Maria was still very upset about her family, and she wanted to avoid any visual contact with them because of her skin color. I'll take your word for it, Inspector. I believe you. But I would like to have the reports on them. I can arrange that. Very good. Trust but verify. Things are really that bad on Earth? Critical. That's why I must have your help, and I want it now. I know you care about this situation. You must help me and the planet Earth. If you cooperate, I will arrange to have your family transported to a habitat home. If Maria had any lingering doubts about his request, they evaporated with the offer. It would be her way to strike back at the lifestyle which, with Wilson's departure, had slipped from her hands. Will they receive extra benefits? They will be taken care of for the rest of their lives if you will get me what I want. I'm agreeable. I'd be half crazy to refuse this, but I still don't know what you want for my help. I cannot tell you the overall story. I can only tell you that what I have done is appropriate, and you must keep this visit and our relationship confidential. Very well, she said as she set the supron on the table. Tell me exactly what you think is appropriate. Cards on the table. Very good. You'll have access to the food production computers. You can, in a few minutes' time, procure an input card with the tonnage figures, all the food leaving the lunar surface in the last 6 months. Correct? Correct. And as a new FPA, you're entitled to a tour of the orbiting Earth silo at your leisure, correct? Correct. I want you to go to that silo under the auspices of the tour, and then I want you to get a complete scan of every centimeter of that silo, as well as the tonnage shipments from the silo to Earth in the last 6 months. What's that got to do with the death of Darius Constantine? Nothing, he said, followed by a long silence. And that's all you're going to tell me, smiled Maria. Correct. All right, I'll do it. But how do I get on that cargo transport? You will pressure Wilson in any way you can at the regional meetings tomorrow. He'll do anything at this point to get you out of here, even if it's only for a few hours. You're probably right. I'll be in the third cafe in the terminal at 10:30 the day after tomorrow. If you don't come down to the cafe, I will assume you boarded the transport. Try and have those input figures on the lunar tonnage when you board the transport. I understand, but what if Terrance won't let me go? We'll take care of it from there. I'll contact you. Don't look for me. You don't even know me, is that clear? I must say I'm pretty nervous about this whole thing, Inspector. Glass stood, packed his computer, and handed her a scanner. There's nothing to worry about. Everything, with the exception of the silo scan, is perfectly legitimate, part of your job. Now, he said as he came to the doors, let's hope I don't see you until we board the transport. Have a good night. And don't worry. Computer, lower screens. Computer, she said to her own computer in the room, open the doors for this man. Glass hurried into the corridor without any other departing words. The doors closed and Maria wandered back to the sofa as she tried to anticipate the newest twist in her life.